Hi, my name is Marcus Cupola, and this is Gray Zone Therapy. Life isn't black and white. Life is the gray zone, which is where we start. You might remember me from such happiness videos as If You're Happy and You Know It, copyright, and Happiness Isn't a DLC. It's been a while since my last video, which I apologize for. I've been doing some other projects for some other people. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 2 keys to happiness. And I'm going to tell you what they are right off the bat. Number 1 is knowing what happiness is. And the second is having a reasonable expectation for getting there. Now this might sound very simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds. When I often ask people what happiness is, they actually don't know, they don't have an answer. Because we often don't really think about what happiness is for us. We often think about the things that will make us happy. I'll be happy when my bills are paid off. I'll be happy when I don't have to do this. And herein lies the problem. A lot of what people define happiness is actually what happiness isn't. What I mean is, when I ask, what is happiness? They will say, well, happiness isn't having too much bills, or happiness isn't being overburdened with this, or happiness isn't, or if I was happy, I won't have this, or if I was happy, this didn't happen. So happiness, people will often incorrectly define as its inverse. They will define it as an absence of something, which isn't true. Because happiness is something that we go towards, a direction that we go, a thing that we work for. But if we don't even know what it is, because we're only thinking about what we want it to not be, that's an absence of information rather than a presence of information. And if we don't have a presence of information, we don't have something to reach for. We don't have something to work towards. And if we don't know what happiness means for us, we can't possibly actually reach for it. Which is why many of us would say, well, I'm waiting for, and then whatever it is. But the key word is that we're always waiting. We're waiting for someone else or something else or a circumstance. So what we're not doing is working for it. We're not making it happen because we've incorrectly thought about what happiness is. So the first key is to do some thinking to yourself about what is happiness for me. Not what it isn't, what is it? What are some behaviors that make me happy? Will I be happy painting? If so, then I can learn to paint. I can go to paint. I can find a way to paint. I can reach for that. But if I don't know what happiness is, it's impossible for me to work towards and is therefore impossible for me to ever achieve. Now let's say I do that inner soul searching and I know what happiness is. For me, happiness is being able to do artistic things like make videos. For me, happiness is making pottery, or for me, happiness is smiles on children's faces. For me, happiness is. I then still have to work towards that. Maybe I really want to work with children. Well, working with your own children isn't the same thing for those of us with children. I'm sure you know what I mean. And for those of us who don't have children, take a look at the exhausted looks on parents' faces. Does that really look like their version of happiness? They might say, I love my family. That's not the same thing as saying, I'm really happy, this is happiness for me. So if I really want to work with children, I need to find a way to work with children that will allow me to be happy. Simply having children, the presence of children, might not be my version of happiness. It might be somebody else's version of happiness. Or it might be mine and not somebody else's. However, happiness, when we often think of it in terms of what we don't have. I don't have this happiness. And so whatever construct or idea that happiness is, we will have to work towards. We might need to change jobs. We might need to be in a different relationship or be with a different person. Or we might need to... There are millions of ways to finish that sentence. But the second key is to have a realistic expectation for getting there. It might take years to actually get to what happiness is for you. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with something being hard. How old are you now? Whatever that number is, add 5 to it. How old will you be in 5 years? Are you planning on poofing out of existence? Now some of you, I'm sure, are mocking me on the other side, but the reality is you are not going to poof out of existence. And unless you're actively planning on ending your life, then you're still going to be here in 5 years. So no matter what, you can either have 5 years of working towards it, however hard or long it is, or in 5 years you can still be wishing you had started now. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So I'd like to challenge you to think what happiness is for you. What is it genuinely? And when you think you have that, I want you to maybe write it down, make it a concrete idea, and then look at it again and say, is this happiness? Would this make me happy? And if the answer is yes, then we want to think, what is a realistic way of getting to that? What do I realistically need to do? And many of you are saying things like, happiness would be having $1 million or something like that. That's not what happiness is. You've experienced happiness in your life and you don't have $1 million. So I guess I have to add a caveat in there, and you need to think about realistically what is happiness. Because happiness isn't an excess of money. People who have lots of money, more than the minimum that we need to subsist, I mean, let's be real, if we have less than a certain amount, we are miserable, and we would be happy to be able to afford a roof over our heads, or we would be happy to afford some minor luxuries like heat or air conditioning or a vehicle we don't have to worry about. Once we get above that minimum, money doesn't buy happiness. It does not. And if you want the proof, take a look at all the rich people who are absolutely miserable. Take a look at the people who are working themselves to death and who have money, whom you know. They might not be rich, but they have enough money, they're not happy. Because they're missing something. Money is not what they're missing. So go back, reassess, what is this? Is this really what happiness is for me? And then how can I get there? And just pick one thing, and you can start to work towards it. I'm going to wrap this up together now. Those are the two keys to happiness. One is knowing what happiness is. And again, it is not simple. It is not something like $1 million. And it is not an absence of something. And the second is having a realistic expectation. If you have a realistic expectation, then this is something that you will be able to feel you can work towards, piece by piece, little bit by little bit. And this will help you to get to happiness. That's everything. Thank you for watching. And I was going to say welcome back, but maybe it does still work. Welcome back, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.